Thank you for tuning in to the Into the Classroom series produced by Mental Health California, sponsored by Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative.
Welcome to Into the Classroom, which is a student mental health awareness multimedia series produced by Mental Health California. I'm your host, Conrad Crump, affectionately known as Coach Crump, and today's topic is on post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD for short, is a mental health condition that can significantly impact the lives of students. Today, we'll explore the prevalence of youth PTSD in the United States, including PTSD among minority groups that are attending high schools and colleges, as well as their immigrant peers. We'll also learn a lot more about the origins of youth PTSD and the role of schools in supporting students with PTSD as well. We'll also be exploring healing solutions, including culturally appropriate therapies and holistic methods as well. Today, we're happy to have Jeremy Jackson, who is an associate clinical social worker at Wellness Together. His experience includes the military, homeless services, addiction counseling, management, and leadership development. He's worked with individuals needing support with anxiety, depression, and PTSD management and understanding. Now, I'd actually like to take the time to introduce some of our youth guests. We're happy to have our youth guests with us, and college students that are here with us, they're busy, they've got a lot of different things going on. So I want to be sure to introduce our folks that are here with us today. We have with us Sophia Toledo.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Awesome. We also have with us Monica Tamayo from UCLA. We're also joined by Michael Betlak from Sac State University.
What's up, Coach Crump? How you doing?
And last but not least, we have with us Joel Suazo from Los Angeles City College. What's up, Joel? Jeremy, if you'd like to go ahead and give us some brief insights into PTSD, that'd be great.
There's different signs and symptoms of PTSD, and a lot of times our youth are unable to recognize that. And it can stem from different experiences, from childhood. We talk about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, that a lot of young individuals experience as a young child, that they grew up with believing that this is a normal feeling. So PTSD has a lot of different faces, and that's what therapy is all about.
So let's go ahead and look into our slide presentation to go a little further in on this topic. So when we talk about the prevalence of PTSD in youth, the research indicates that post-traumatic stress disorder is a significant concern for youth in the United States. According to the National Survey of Adolescents, approximately 3.7% of United States adolescents aged 13 to 18 have experienced PTSD in their lifetime. And if unresolved, PTSD, which causes an injury to the brain, can be triggered by similar or distressing events. Now let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. Now, it's also important to note that the prevalence of PTSD may vary among different racial and ethnic groups. Minority students attending high schools and colleges may face unique challenges that contribute to higher rates of PTSD. For example, studies have shown that African American and Latinx youth are more likely to experience racially traumatic events and subsequently develop PTSD compared to their white counterparts. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. Now, there are various reasons why high school and college students may experience PTSD. Traumatic events such as physical or sexual abuse, or witnessing violence, or experiencing natural disasters or even being involved in accidents can all contribute to the development of PTSD. And, for those that were raising their hands earlier, I'd like to actually ask, if you can maybe just kind of elaborate on what some of those situations, you don't have to go into detail, but if you can just touch on what some of those situations were that may have caused the trauma that you experienced. And I believe I saw Monica's hand raised. So, Monica, would you care to elaborate?
Yeah, so I do have some friends that have PTSD from a sexual assault at a college party. So they feel a little more like on edge whenever they're going out. They make sure like that they have their like pepper spray on them, and they don't want to go out alone or like after hours anymore because that's what got them in the situation. So anytime that the experience like feels familiar, they get back those memories and they don't feel comfortable with it, and then that's what triggers their PTSD.
So, we want to actually talk about adverse childhood experiences, also known as ACEs. Now, ACEs play a significant role in the development of PTSD. These experiences include neglect, household dysfunction, and exposure to violence. ACEs can have long lasting effects on a young person's mental health and increase their vulnerability to PTSD. Now, I'd like to actually ask Jeremy, can you give us some insight into the connection of ACEs and PTSD?
Sure. So with ACEs, as a child is growing and developing, their brains are developing as well. And so when we have a traumatic experience as a child, we start to really associate that with what normal looks like, and so we begin to believe that that's just a normal way of life. But then, as we get older, we start to see that that is different, and so we start to really reflect back on those types of experiences and trying to understand why those happened. And a lot of times, we do end up in the same situation as we did back as children.
Hmm, that's very informative. Thanks a lot for that, Jeremy. I want to keep the conversation going while we have our young folks here. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide. So when it comes to schools, schools certainly can create a safe and supportive environment that promotes mental health and well-being. They can implement trauma-informed practices, which involve understanding the impact of trauma on students' behavior and academic performance. I'd like to ask some of our folks that are here. Let's go with you, Michael. Can you talk to me or some of the folks in the audience about what support looks like at your school?
Yeah, in my school we have a pretty wide range of support, I'd say. We have counselors available to us for a number of mental issues, a bunch of either if you're going through depression, anxiety, we have counselors at the school to help you for that. Um, we have support groups around the school as well. We have just different clubs that deal with mental health as well, to try to give you that peer supported group, to help young folks get involved, because sometimes you might not want to go to a counselor or you might not want to go to an adult. So, I feel like it helps to have those clubs as well because you're around people your age, people who are going through similar situations. And it just makes it easier to open up to to your peers, I feel like.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Michael. And Joel, talk to us about your campus. What's going on at Los Angeles City College?
Yeah, so at my campus, there has been a couple times where I have noticed youth would either leave classes or go outside and get like a drink of water or a breath of fresh air. When I first started seeing that, I didn't know what was going on until, one of the teachers had brought it to the whole classroom's attention to just let us know that, if something alarming comes up or triggering or depending on the conversation or just depending on how you're feeling that day. If you do need to excuse yourself and go outside or speak to someone, you are very welcome to do that. You can definitely reach out. Just like Michael said, they also have a lot of support with mental health overall. So on site, there is therapists that you can make appointments with, that you could be able to talk to if you're having any difficulties. And overall, they just seem very welcoming and there to support youth in having better mental health and finding those right coping mechanisms.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I don't want to leave you out of the conversation, Sophia, because I know you're at the high school level. Can you talk to us about what that looks like at high school? What support systems might currently exist?
Well, at my school, we have our counselors, and you get to talk to our counselors about basically anything, colleges, how you feel, anything you want. You also have your teachers. If you could be very close to your teachers. For example, I'm close to my band teacher, and she has a couch in her office. And sometimes, if you feel like if you for quiet time, me personally, I go in her office and you don't have to say anything. You just stay there in silence to get your mind in the right track. And we don't really have any clubs for support groups or anything, but we do have our teachers and counselors. So I'm very lucky to have that at least.
Very good. Well, that's good to know that you do have someone that you can reach out to in case you might need support. And I mean, that's what it's about, is supporting students. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. And speaking of supporting students, when it comes to supporting students with PTSD, there are a whole host of resources, a whole host of approaches. Training teachers and staff to recognize the signs of trauma, providing counseling services, and even implementing strategies to create a sense of safety and stability for students are all key and all things that can help the wellness and well-being of our students. Schools themselves can actually collaborate with mental health professionals and community organizations to ensure that there's comprehensive support for students with PTSD. So let's go ahead and go to our next slide. Now, when it comes to support for students at schools, there are a couple of successful programs that currently exist. One of those programs that has been found to reduce PTSD symptoms and improve overall functioning in students is the Trauma and Grief Component Therapy for Adolescents program, also known as TGCTA. Now, the TGCTA program is a school-based intervention that combines trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy with grief-focused therapy. Let's go ahead and go to our next slide. Now, another program is the Resilience Builder program. This program is another school-based intervention that focuses on building resilience and coping skills in students. It has been found to reduce symptoms of PTSD and improve overall well-being. And additionally, we have the Cognitive Behavioral Intervention for Trauma in Schools, or CBI-TIS. That's another evidence-based program that provides individual and group therapy to students that have been affected by trauma. Now, let's go ahead and go on to our next slide. Now, we want to also talk about experiences of immigrant students. Now, immigrant students may have experienced traumatic events in their home countries, such as war, political unrest, or persecution. These experiences can contribute to the development of PTSD. And when immigrating to the United States, these students may face additional challenges such as language barriers or cultural adjustments, as well as discrimination. And all of this can exacerbate their PTSD symptoms. Immigrant students need culturally sensitive mental health services and resources that can address their unique needs. I want to check in with our licensed clinician here and just ask you, Jeremy, can you maybe talk about the need for culturally competent resources and culturally sensitive resources for our immigrant population?
Of course, Coach Khan. What a lot of individuals during their master's program, they emphasize cultural humility, right? Which is a understanding of that we do not have a full grasp of everybody's culture, so we shouldn't go into therapy believing this, that we know about everybody's culture. We want to be open, honest, and willing to learn from that culture. And so we really started taking a huge look at how can we best provide services to immigrants based off their cultural understanding and based off their cultural experiences. And so we started really taking a hard look at language, you know, different with our documentation. We're looking hard for individuals that meet that population's need, ba- language understanding, and so the idea of culture has been on the forefront in schools for some time now, and it has greatly moved towards ensuring that we get a vast amount of knowledge and experience from within, our population. For example, the school I went to, it doesn't they want as many individuals that from different diverse backgrounds within their within the program so that we can actually provide that.
Wonderful analysis. Thank you very much for that. So if we can go on to our next slide, thank you very much. We have here, a couple of organizations that are helping students with PTSD. So for instance, the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, or NCTSN, provides resources and training and support to professionals working with traumatized children and their families. This includes immigrant populations as well. Other organizations, such as the American Psychological Association, also known as APA, and the National Alliance on Mental Illness, also known as NAMI, offer resources and support to individuals and families that have been affected by PTSD. Now, there are also additional factors and dynamics at play. We know that economic hardships and living in disadvantaged neighborhoods can also increase the risk of exposure to traumatic events and hinder access to resources for recovery. Societal factors such as stigma and discrimination can also further impact the well-being of students with PTSD. Additionally, positive relationships and social support networks are essential for healing and resilience. And I want to ask you, Sophia, why might a positive relationship and a positive social group help out young folks that are dealing with PTSD?
I feel like it will help out so the person dealing with the PTSD could feel like they're not alone. They have people to support them what they're going through, and that maybe it's not hopeless to just keep going on with their lives. And it really helps a lot into what people are feeling with PTSD, because it's really a struggle, and to just it's dealing with that is just a very big thing in general. And I feel like if people are just there to support you, it just makes it a little less harder than what it really is.
Very good. No, that is spot on. I definitely appreciate that feedback. So looking at clinical solutions for youth, we have here cognitive behavioral therapy. That's a widely recognized treatment for PTSD, also known as CBT. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps individuals identify and challenge negative thoughts and beliefs associated with those traumatic events. It also helps them to develop coping strategies and gradually confront their fears. I'd like to kick it back over to you, Jeremy. Can you talk to us more about cognitive behavioral therapy? I mean, what is that? If someone were in our audience today and didn't know what it was, can you elaborate on that for us?
Sure. So cognitive behavior therapy is an evidence-based practice that has shown to decrease the effectiveness or the traumatizing impacts of these memories or thoughts. And so through cognitive behavior therapy, what we do is we take a look at these intrusive thoughts or, the memories that are associated with these thoughts and help process those. Through this processing, we will help the individual gain a better understanding of triggers, these different trauma responses that happen with these thoughts. And so in doing that, it also allows them to be able to decrease the likelihood and the length of time these responses have on them. So through cognitive behavioral therapy, we help them gain coping skills. So when a traumatic thought or reliving of an experience happens, it's not going to incapacitate them. It may startle them, but they are able to process and continue to live that life that they want.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah, thank you for that information. Super informative. Let's go ahead and move on to our next slide. Because I also know there's another effective type of therapy, which I've heard of. It's EMDR. So eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or EMDR, is obviously another effective therapy that helps individuals process traumatic memories and reduce distressing symptoms. Medications such as selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they also may be prescribed in some cases to help alleviate those symptoms of PTSD. Now let's move on to our next slide. So when we talk about healing solutions for youth with PTSD, we also got to add in the fact that holistic healing solutions exist as well. These culturally appropriate therapies and holistic remedies can certainly be beneficial. They may include art therapy, music therapy, yoga, mindfulness practices, and traditional healing practices that are culturally relevant to the individual. Engaging in activities that promote self-care, such as exercise, spending time in nature, and practicing relaxation techniques, can also contribute to the healing process. When I think about healing and I think about self-care, I think about ways in which we can all, just increase our own mental health and mental wellness. And, some of those things, when I think about it, can be breathing. Breathing exercises is one way to certainly help to relieve stress, relieve pressure. Another type of therapeutic, outlet can be music therapy. I've also heard this as well as just being creative and having art and painting and so on and so forth. So let me ask you, Sophia, what are some of the self-care and wellness tips that you currently practice?
Well, currently, the music therapy is a big one for me because I play trumpet, and honestly, is one of my biggest hobbies besides painting and drawing. But playing the trumpet is a big one for me because it helps me relax. It helps me get my mind off stuff, and it makes me focus on what I'm playing. And it's just like a really big passion for me, and it's just something I like to do. But besides playing the trumpet, I also find other things to do, like learn a new instrument. That's always a good thing to do. Also, painting is really nice. It helps me you get my mind off stuff like the trumpet does, like painting pictures. You can find inspirations on Google. And so yeah, the drawing online also the same thing. But yeah, they're all very fun and very therapeutic in my opinion.
That is pretty cool. And, much like you, I used to play the horn. I used to play the saxophone, and I'm actually learning to play the guitar. And for me, learning a new instrument has proven to be very therapeutic, very relaxing. And I just feel like a sense of confidence and like I'm learning something new. It's a really great feeling. Another thing that I think about as you were talking was yoga. I've actually, for the first time, saw an elementary school start their entire school on the playground, all of them in different lines. And actually two of the students would go to the front and do different yoga practices and different poses. And all of the students would be practicing yoga. And I thought, wow, that is a really great way to really start the day. So let me ask our clinician, Jeremy, what other types of therapies or practices might be helpful in terms of the holistic type of healing for our young folks?
So there's this practice called sound bowls. It
Hmm.
uses different frequencies as a medium to relax the body. And the basis behind that is that there are certain frequencies that happen that causes our body to have different reactions to. So for example, a high frequency might cause our body to, just relax, or, our muscles to like tense up. And so they use sound bowls now as a holistic method of self-care and relaxation, because it allows us to hit that relaxive period and, de-stress, untense our muscles.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for that, Jeremy. That reminds me, I've been to different places where they've used sound bowls or singing bowls, is what I've heard. And it's like they have a bowl, they hit the side of it, and they're rubbing around the rim, and the sound is like, it's a vibration that I can't really explain, but it's something that really truly does something to you physically. You can feel a physical change in your body. So that's another thing that definitely I think could be helpful in terms of therapy. We've had a great discussion today, and I'd also like to give a huge thank you to you, our audience, for joining Into the Classroom, which is a production of Mental Health California. Please be sure to visit us at mentalhealthca.org. Now, if you'd like to access mental wellness topics for boys and men of color, please be sure to visit our signature initiative at brotherbewell.com, and be sure to subscribe to our blog. Also, want to make sure we give a huge thank you to our sponsor, Blue Shield of California's Blue Sky Initiative, which promotes access to mental health support. You can learn all about their program at bluesky.blueshieldca.com. With that, I'm your host, Conrad Crump, aka Coach Crump. Until next time, take good care of yourselves. We'll see you later.